Hopefulness 2.0, May 3rd. Today is a day of eating the easy way, i.e. pot pie. So I got a lot of crap I gotta clean up. The last thing I want to do is make a mess of stuff and then, or rather clean up a bunch of stuff and then have to turn around and clean up even more. So, put you in here. Oh wait, before I do that, I didn't poke the holes in the top. Oops. Seriously? Just use all of them up? What's wrong, man? I only have 3 forks. Somehow I used all 3 of them yesterday. And I don't know how I did that. Oh well, it's whatever. The good thing is that they're easy to clean. The bad thing is I hate cleaning. So I'll say that the meatloaf a la mom, meatloaf is okay. It wasn't all that great. I undercooked the potatoes, unfortunately. Could have been in there a little longer, but at the same time, like, you know, I made a mess of the baking tray, baking sheet. It's kind of unfortunate because, like, this one felt like it needed more. It's like I only really had one cooking pot that was necessary to use, and I ended up using this little bad boy because it was the only thing that was clean, and it was of the right size and everything. Everything else was effectively doable on the cutting board. Water, got a slight headache, so I'm going to get some ibuprofen as well. That's effectively empty at this moment. There's not enough space to refill it, so it's whatever. I forgot to take the meds today, so might as well. It's like 12:30, something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going on with my water. It tastes almost lemony. I don't know. Maybe the filter's done. Which sucks, because I mean, like, I'm burning through these filters like nobody's business. Like, okay, so here's the thing. The last place that I lived at, it would take 6 to 8 months before I could tell there was some sort of distinct difference between the filtered water and the non-filtered water and how it was getting closer to the actual filtered water. Here, it's like 2 months and there's this drastic shift in the flavor. And like the last time, it felt like I was, I don't know, it felt like I was almost poisoning myself or something, because I would get headaches every day. And I don't know, maybe that's what the headache's from too. So I don't know if there's some sort of buildup that's in this water. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's frustrating. So I might as well just get the new one. Because fuck it. last one I've got. I mean, you know, I've only been here since January. And this will have been the third one. So I don't know. Maybe, I mean, for all I know, maybe the chemical components of the filters are degrading or something. I don't know. I think what I'll do is in the process of this, I'll be able to taste while I'm recording and see the difference. Because it's like, again, it almost tastes like the last time it tasted cold, no matter how not cold it was. This time it tastes almost like citrus. And the funny thing is, this is me coming off of a Reddit thread where somebody was like, "Hey, those people who actually like the, you know, the taste of cilantro, what does it taste like?" And they're like, you know, kind of green or citrusy or clean. And I'm like, I would like to know what those flavors taste like, but I never will. Because that is not the experience that I have regarding cilantro. My experience regarding cilantro is soap, which sucks. Here's a fork that was hiding, and it was perfectly clean. Oh well. Let's move a couple things here. Go over here. Push you there. Put you over here where you belong. I'd like to have some kind of like container for my my various flours and sugars and stuff, but you know, kind of like a Tupperware, but better, you know, a little bit easier. I don't know, maybe something like a, possibly kind of like those, you know, sealed jars that have the little pop down. I don't know, just a thought. I would say, you know, glass is better just because, you know, you're dealing with less plastic. But, you know, that's just one idea. One thought. Alright, those are effectively done. Utensils first. So I clean up all the tools before I clean containers and stuff, but at the very least, you know, I got that stuff clean, so. Put them in a place to where it's, you know, easily accessible. They don't all have to be in exactly the same spot, but they should all be relatively close. Bust out the zester yesterday. The zest. Or no, it wasn't yesterday. It was the day before. For the spaghetti. It's going to take a little bit of time to clean up. So I'll just let the water run for that. within the next couple of days, I'm going to need to go to the store and get some basic stuff. Just running low on paper towels, toilet paper, my last sponge. And those things, I should really get all of them over at Food for Less, since it's the closest grocery store. Still haven't heard back from post-interview. I mean, they said that, we're going to move forward. I've got, certain paperwork and onboarding and stuff done, but got a phone call with my psychiatrist today. Kind of looking forward to that. Potentially bad news for the entirety of the United States is that there's a leak of the Supreme Court write-up. I mean, the leak in of itself is bad enough, but potential of the context of the leak is that, Roe v. Wade may actually be going away. So, much needed health care is potentially going to become a lot more difficult. I think that all women should abstain from sex. I know that this doesn't stop, rape cases, and that's unfortunate, of course, but I think that it would be imperative that as many women as possible declare that they will not be having consensual sex with anyone who is a man. Doesn't matter if they're married, doesn't matter if they're not, whatever. Until it is effectively perpetually codified in law that they can have safe, readily accessible abortions. The sad thing is like, Planned Parenthood, for instance, only like 3%, let's be conservative, just less than 10% of their overall actually, I think it's closer to 3%. So let's say less than 5%. Less than 5% of their services are abortion services. So if you want to look at things in a statistical frame of reference, may not be the right word, but whatever. It is a statistical minority. It's an outlier. It's something that basically happens so little that it for all intents and purposes doesn't happen when it comes to the nature of statistics.
not to say that it doesn't happen at all, of course. At least per, Planned Parenthood. That's just Planned Parenthood. I don't know about any other abortion-related services. Planned Parenthood, by all means, is not an abortion clinic. It's just a clinic in which abortions are provided. But for whatever reason, we still have this idea that, somehow they are more important than people who presently live. When it's funny, like, I went to the conservative subreddit after hearing about it, and like one of the top posts with one of the most comments on it, with one of the most upvoted and rewarded comments, talking about how, like, this still isn't even good news because, like, you're gonna, there's greater wealth disparity when it comes to the nature of abortions. So there's going to be more people who are born into poverty, or at least effectively forced to, per law, where they can be taken care of. In one capacity or another. I already know what I'm going to title this video. America sucks, yeah. And I'm going to use as a thumbnail for it an image that I produced some years ago, more or less during the whole Black Lives Matter movement in the mid-2020s. Post George Floyd. It's kind of sad. We have this idea that just perpetuates itself over and over again, that somehow that an unborn fetus has all these rights, and that it's equivalent to murder. Yet, we have so many other issues that plague actual born children and make it very difficult for them to even succeed in life. And then people are like, well, we shouldn't have to take care of your kid. We shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't have to do that. And often, from this very same people who don't want abortions to be accessible. It is the so-called party of personal responsibility. And then, it's like, well, okay, what if they didn't have sex to have, what if they were raped, or what if it was through incest, or, what have you. And then they switch gears, and they're like, well, an innocent child shouldn't be the victim of the blah, blah, blah. So you have to make another innocent person suffer through somebody else's crime for the remainder of their life. And the whole thing is bullshit. It's literally called moving the goalposts. One of Dave Chappelle's Netflix specials. At one point he was talking about how, like, he was literally talking about abortion and the like, and how, like, men generally should shut up about the conversation, and I generally agree. I want to say that more than 95% of the time, men don't need to be involved in the conversation. But then he brought up another point that I hadn't really considered. And I was like, well, if you have the right to kill the baby, to kill the fetus, whatever, and almost no, like, going back to the whole Planned Parenthood, 3%, less than 5% statistical anomaly outlier type thing, where for all intents and purposes, Planned Parenthood and their overall services are so not abortion focused that they are not an abortion clinic. That statistically speaking, they basically just don't do them. Statistically speaking, most abortions do not occur in the third trimester, which for whatever reason, some people really are hanging on to that. They really want to push this whole third trimester abortion problem into being a thing that's not a thing. And if it were to happen, there's going to be a lot going on. And Pete Buttigieg had a really great response to it. Basically saying, like, look, yeah, it's a really important thing to consider that at that point in their life, parents going to have to make a really tough decision if they were ever going to have to do that. They probably have names picked out. They probably bought cribs. They probably made a room. They've been preparing their life to have this extra life, and now they have to sacrifice that for some reason. Nobody wants to be put into that situation, and the last thing anybody should be doing is judging somebody for being in that situation. And I've noticed that response is one of empathy. It is one of understanding, of caring, and of trying to understand a person who might be in that position. Whereas the opposite is the opposite in that I'm a little zealous with that one. Yeah, see, this just tastes clean now. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Where they're just trying to demonize you for doing this. And it's like, look, have you not realized that this person is hurting? That this person wanted this child? You know, nobody's going into a third trimester abortion excited about it. It's a painful event for them. It's not something that they want. And yet, we have people out there, including politicians, some of who have way more power than they should ever have had in their life, making claims that this is somehow super common. And it's not. But, and here's where it boils down to, when it comes to all this stuff, is that they don't care that it happens, because they know it happens. What they care about is the fact that they can't stop it from happening, so they need to punish the people who do it. It's the same thing with gun crimes. You know, the funny thing is like literally the same arguments that they use against abortion care is very much the same arguments that people for abortion care will say with regards to gun crime. It's an interesting dichotomy. It's like if we say we want to reduce the number of abortions by making it legal,
they'll basically say, well, we're making gun crimes less likely by making guns legal, which honestly is kind of horseshit. But you can see where that confluence of thoughts comes together and creates a lot of pain in the ass conversation about stuff.
When pro-life basically says, look, we understand that life can happen no matter the circumstances. Life can and will often happen. And however you want to define life, be it at conception or beforehand, you know, even beforehand. I know some people, you know, they'll try to brainwash you or gaslight you or however it is. They'll try to get you to understand they're a minority, but and also statistically enough that they're basically non-existent in the real world. But there are some people who will try to claim that life even exists before conception because of God's plan and all this other shit. Those people I definitely stay away from. But it is very difficult to stop the process of life.
Okay? And so when it happens, because it does sometimes just happen, despite our best efforts, some would say, well, then don't have sex. Well, then some would say, what about instances of rape, especially be it, you know, rape by people who are more powerful than you, etc., etc. You know, people are using sex as a form of a weapon in these situations. They're using it as a form of control, power, etc. And yeah, shut up. They can basically let biology do their work for them to exacerbate their own heinous acts of using power against somebody else. But even then, even if it's between two consenting adults who love each other very much and they don't want children, their biological functions are intended, well, not intended because that implies some sort of forethought. Human biology really wants to just replicate itself. And in a lot of ways, anti-abortion laws are kind of like a form of power. Some would say that's exactly what they are. And I'm trying to sort of deconstruct it even more so. Like when somebody rapes you and they ejaculate inside of a female, And that female's body does what the female's body does because of how it works. Anti-abortion laws are basically raping people. In fact, they empower people who are in positions of power. They disenfranchise people who are not in positions of power. And I'm not even being hyperbolic. I'm not going above and beyond and being, embellishing. I'm simply just taking basic concepts and extrapolating, and that's it. I'm not even trying to create slippery slope arguments or anything like that. I'm simply just trying to piece together similarities. And the similarities are right there in front of us. Because the basis of how the human body works, people are trying to say this is natural. And then they're creating, extrapolating rule sets that we almost follow in order to follow through with their way of thinking. There are people out there who think rape is natural. Sure, it's natural in some way or another, but human society is by no means natural. We don't allow rape, although in a lot of ways, for some reason, we fucking do. Brock Turner, both pieces of shit douchebags, totally got away with rape. We have cities with backlogs of rape kits that they just throw away because they have too many. Because they, for some reason, despite their massive fucking budgets, can't seem to process these rape kits. And so it makes me think about, about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, somewhere in that time frame. Sort of following Lauren Southern and her, she would stand around at times and she'd have like a poster that says, "You don't live in a rape culture." And then she would talk about situations where real rape culture existed. And it's like, I'm starting to believe that she was full of shit. We do live in a rape culture because we live in a society that, for all intents and purposes, while on the surface says no to rape, but in practice and with a lot of substance seems okay with it. And I know that I've kind of turned the conversation around. But that's what I'm saying is that just like we live in a racist society, a society that is founded, constructed with racism on the backs of slaves, we still have a racist society. And in many ways, we live in a slave-esque society with wage slaves. And we have people who are in power who are constantly suppressing people who don't, making it harder for them to get what the rich people have. See, and that's the other thing. The rich people have all of these things. But they don't want the people who aren't rich to have the things that they have. Because then they would be equal. And that's unacceptable. Because then where would you have your power? If everybody's equal, nobody's equal. Which, I don't know, that might actually be one way of deconstructing that line. Somebody smarter than me might be able to play with it. But, yeah, it's, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to think about. And I am a white male in America, so there are many things that I have that others don't. Privileges being one, and I'm not talking about those so much. I mean, I can attempt to use them in some capacity or another, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll even be successful. People have a hard time listening to me for some reason, for one reason or another. Unless they're a friend and I'm just having a conversation with them, and then that's about it. But there are other white men out there who have power, have influence, and hopefully they will say something similar, and hopefully more than enough of them will listen. And like I said before, and I know that I've gone all over the place, because that's me, and this isn't really a cry for help or, you know, a call to action or anything of that nature, because that's not the nature of these videos. The nature of these videos is to talk about stuff that's on my mind, unfiltered, unedited, one stream of thought from beginning to end. But I hope that with this information, more women, and I'm going to tell my sister this too, I hope that more women straight up stop. It's like, no, you're not going to get any, you're not having sex until Roe v. Wade is codified into perpetuity, into law. And that includes porn stars, that includes any other sex workers. Sex workers should stop producing content altogether. Starve out everyone in every way possible. Because that, at least in my mind, might actually create some real change. Have fun.